Hey, what's up? Modern philosopher, back yet again, and right now I'm going to be talking about Immanuel Kant. I'm going to be discussing a lot of his theories. I'm also going to relate to what we talked about last week with empiricism versus rationalism. So, without further ado, Immanuel Kant is known pretty much only for his categorical imperative. So Kant comes up with the idea, well, you have a priori and priori ideas, and you have empirical and rationalist ideas. And he relates those to the world, and he says that there are categorical imperatives, which are things that are definite. It's a universal truth. And he says that these universal truths is how you're going to go into morals and ethics. On the other side of those categorical imperatives, you have hypothetical imperatives. And these are things that are things only true in hypothetical worlds. They're not true in our universe, is the basic gist of it. And he uses hypothetical imperatives to discuss like thought experiments and whatnot. But the categorical imperative is what we're going to talk about for morals and ethics. And we're going to discuss why it doesn't really work, because it doesn't really fit with perspectives. So I've already discussed and implemented basically enveloped the idea of how each individual is different, right? Each person has a different perspective. So with that, everybody has their own perspective on what is right and what is wrong. Everybody has their own versions of morality, and it's because of our immense diversity that we have the ability to have such an incredible and adaptable society, right? But when it comes to morals and ethics, everybody has their different spin on things. And this different spin makes finding out what's right and what's wrong really, really difficult. Because what I see as right, my neighbor could see as completely wrong. And therefore, the consequences for these actions are also just as volatile. So the categorical imperative is something that Kant comes up with to try and get rid of that. And so he says that in order for something to be morally right, it has to be morally right in all the cases. It has to be a categorical imperative. He even has a quote that talks about how in law a man is guilty when he violates the rights of others. In ethics, he is guilty if he thinks of doing so. So his categorical imperative says that, you can't even think about doing something wrong before you're, committing some ethical crime or some moral wrong, right? So it's true in all cases. That's what the categorical imperative says. Now, the issue with the categorical imperative is that it doesn't work. It just flat out does not work. There is no such thing as a universal truth. Nothing exists in the universe except our constant state of change. And change is basically the definition of difference, not the same truth, if that makes sense. And our extremes is also another reasoning why the categorical imperative doesn't work. You have a truth and you also have the opposite of that truth, right? And so those are contradicting theories, and therefore it doesn't quite fit into his categorical imperative, because not everything is right all the time. And then the other part that proves the categorical imperative just false of Fugazi is the fact that everybody thinks differently. Everybody has their own perspective. So now when we think about morals and ethics, we have to think about them in a way that takes into account differing perspectives, right? So everybody has their own view about, let's come up with a crime. So a crime is stealing a piece of gum from a store, right? That's our crime. And so deciding whether or not that's morally bad is up to the situation. So actually, not gum, let's say a loaf of bread, We're stealing a loaf of bread from the market, right? And so to decide whether or not that's good or bad, we have to look at the entire situation. And that's something that Immanuel Kant fails to see, and that's something we have to be really careful about. So perspective changes morals and ethics because perspective is gained from your society, and your morals and ethics are given to you from your society. So leads us into what we need to do when we decide about morals and ethics. And the truth about it is they're individual. You have to leave it up to the person to come up with their morals and ethics. There is no universal right and there is no universal wrong. It just doesn't work. You know, if you're stealing a loaf of bread, some can consider that to be morally wrong, but in a certain situation, maybe they need that loaf of bread to keep their family alive for a week, in which case then it's a moral right in some respects, some perspectives. So it's really a gray area. And that's the worst part about morals and ethics, is that there's no right and there's no wrong. It's the gray area. It's the mean in between. And so what you have to do is you have to go back to that yin and yang. There is a right and there is a wrong, but you have to understand that you have to have a balance between the two, right? One path is good for certain reasons and another path is good for certain reasons. There is no one path that's perfectly right and one path that's perfectly wrong. Both paths have benefits and both paths have negative aspects to them, right? So when you're making those decisions, the best way to make your decisions and the best way to come up with a moral compass is to not think about the action itself, not think about the path, but think about what comes after that. Think about the consequences, right? So you have the fork in the road and you choose left and right. Well, you can't really see what goes beyond that. And so you can choose right or wrong, and that's going to be your perspective on that situation. What you have to do is you have to take yourself out of the situation, and you have to see what happens on each path. You have to look into the future, our kingdom of futures. You have to look what happens at the next fork in the road on that path, right? So when you're coming up with a moral decision, your compass should be based on the reactions rather than the action itself. Because when you're thinking about the action itself, there's a lot of moral gray area that you can't really deal with. But when it comes to the reactions, it's a little bit easier to discern what's a good reaction and what's a bad consequence, right? And so it's a little bit easier for us to decipher that. And we have to basically come up with our morals and ethics based on reactions rather than actions. And that's why Immanuel Kant is wrong. There is no universal truth. There is nothing that says this is always right. It does not exist. That would make philosophy too easy, and it wouldn't really be its topic, morals and ethics in philosophy. So that was perspectives in relation to morals and ethics. I talked about Immanuel Kant mostly, but yeah, so if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Give me some comments if you want me to elaborate on anything else in my further videos. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Follow me on Twitter and Google+. And I'm going to be talking about Freud, and I'm also going to be talking about humility and virtue in my next two videos. My good friend Alex is going to come by, and we're going to talk about humility and virtue and how perspectives and religion all relate and tie into morals and ethics. So that was the last video I'll post today. That was the last Daily Enlightenment. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Alright, bye.